Good evening and welcome, and Happy New Year. Tonight we are going to do something different for Attlas Live. We are going to have what will amount to a bit of a celebration. The background that we selected is supposedly an old Viking drinking hall. Although we don't drink, we'll still be drinking water. We don't drink alcohol. However, we, by all means, if this is your way of celebrating New Year's Eve, then welcome, and you're most welcome to join us. And tonight we want to try something different. We're not sure how well it will work, but we invite you to click the link that we just shared in the chat and join the live stream. Come on. If you have a webcam, great. If you only have a microphone, perhaps you just have to use your phone or whatever microphone or headset you might have available to you. Perhaps you have one of these type headsets with a microphone built into it. You don't have to put yourself on camera. You can just come on as an icon, and hopefully we can just have a conversation, just have a discussion. And we can speak about whatever's in your heart, whatever's on your mind, whatever you feel you want to get off your chest or you want to share with everyone. Come and be a part of Attlas Live in a more meaningful way than just in the chat. Although if you want to just participate and just observe and you want to share something in the chat, then by all means do so as well. We're going to switch you over here to our main monitor so we can hopefully see what's going on, and hopefully we can do this without any feedback or whatever. So if you use headphones, that might be the best, if you use headphones and a microphone. And then we can avoid having any feedback issues, because that might be a problem. But let's see how this goes. If we run into some technical difficulties, we will overcome those hurdles as they arise. But otherwise, just join us. As you know, or as you may know, you may be aware, Wednesday's live stream was interrupted by YouTube. It seems that our attempts at showing movie clips from the Lord of the Rings was the cause of copyright strikes, but we were unaware of those strikes were coming in because we use a tool called StreamYards, which is the link that we would have shared with you right now to come and participate. And because we use StreamYards, we don't receive any feedback from YouTube. And we were receiving copyright strikes in real time. And then later, they just shut the stream down, and they on claims that that we were scamming, that we were not being honest with what we claimed that we were going to be what we were going to be presenting. So we appealed it, but we lost the appeal. So the video has been struck. So officially, this is season 1, episode 40. And this will be obviously the last episode of this season, the last episode of 2021. And either we are going to begin a new season next week and call it season 2, episode 1, or we're going to drop the seasons altogether and just use the episode number. So we'll continue with 41, 42, 43. We're not sure yet. We haven't decided yet how we're going to do that. The season notion has its appeal, but also if we ever get into the hundreds of episodes, then having a specific episode number might, reduce any confusion, where people can say, oh, well, it was this, you have to watch this episode, look for this episode number. Because as soon as you start throwing seasons into it, it starts getting a little perhaps confusing. However, the flip side of that is we can have a season 1 archive, and then a season 2 archive, and a season 3 archive. So season 1 episode whatever is just as good as saying episode 200 whatever. In any case, these are sort of nuts and bolts issues that we are considering as we move forward. We promised that we would tackle the Lord of the Rings topic again, either in a future live stream or in its own standalone video. And as we've been considering, and as the live stream was going on Wednesday, the depth and scope and breadth of the esoteric significance of that modern mythology cannot be overstated. We didn't even begin. We got to focus on the main dynamic between Frodo, Samwise, and Smeagol and Gollum, because Smeagol and Gollum are a split personality. And the significance of that in relation to ourselves, our innermost being, and the false self, who is constantly being tempted by the precious, by Gollum. Right? He's being manipulated. The false self is so easily manipulated and is untrustworthy. But Smeagol is their guide. And Frodo says, this creature is bound to me and I to him. So this idea that they're bound together, i.e. by the great law, by the law of karma, and the ring, all of this is represented in the ring and the power of the ring, the one ring to rule them all. There is so much to unpack that literally we could probably spend hours and hours and hours just unpacking these symbols, and we never even got around to one of the most precious, pardon the pun, and most important symbols and symbolisms that we wanted to get around to talking about in the Lord of the Rings, which is the feminine and nature, Mother Nature. The divine mother, the divine feminine is the Lord of the Rings is saturated with symbolism and characters who embody the power of the divine feminine and nature. J.R.R. Tolkien was a huge lover of nature and all things simple and pure and natural. The simplicity and the beauty and the peace and the joy and the wonder of nature. And he very much was disheartened by the industrial age. And that gets reflected in the machinations of Isengard and Mordor and the war machine and what Saruman does at Isengard. He creates this industrial mecca around Isengard, and they mow down the forest, right, in order to feed this monster, this industrial monstrosity, to build these armies to march against Helm's Deep. And of course, there is that wonderful, wonderful character of Treebeard, one of the most endearing, lovable characters ever to appear in literature. A tree herder and the Ents. This whole the whole fantasy around this notion that the trees are alive, they have souls, they are beings. The truth of that, the esoteric truth of that. And then so Tolkien brings them to life in a way that nobody had ever really done before, in such a profound way. And that Fangorn Forest is feared because of these mythical creatures that exist in there, who are the tree herders. And so we see this clash between industry and the natural world. But then that is only on the base level of Mother Nature and the Divine Mother. We have the characters of Arwen the elf, who is betrothed to Aragorn, who chooses a mortal life to be with him. We have Eowyn, a shield maiden of Rohan. We can't even say her title without getting choked up. Eowyn, who has one of the greatest moments in literature, in fantasy, in mythology, where she's facing off against the Witch King of Angmar in the Return of the King in the great battle, and she cuts off the head of the Nazgul, that the Witch King of Angmar, who is the leader of the Nazgul, is the leader of the Nine, and she squares off against him, and he says to her, "Fool, no man can kill me." And she takes off her helmet, and her flowing golden hair unfurls from under her helmet, and she says, "I am no man." And she stabs him in the face. And he crumples in on himself and is no more. He is unmade. He is unmade by the power of the divine feminine, by a shield maiden of Rohan, who could very well, Tolkien could have very well just plucked her from the pages of from the score, from the Flight of the Valkyries, right, from Wagner's Ring Cycle. And by the way, the Lord of the Rings, the One Ring, if you want to meditate on the meaning of the One Ring, listen to Wagner's Ring Cycle, the Ring der Nibelung, because the relationship between those two mythologies, one is an epic opera, the other is an epic modern mythology, but the two of them are so intimately related and connected. Even though Wagner was consciously putting Norse mythology to music, and Tolkien was consciously creating a new mythology for England, nonetheless, all mythologies spring forth from the same source. All allegories, all symbols spring forth from that same source of universal truth. So the ring in both these properties are intimately connected, and one can very easily transpose, for example, the music of Wagner onto the text of The Lord of the Rings. One could very easily take Wagner's music and transpose it onto the scenes from Peter Jackson's film. Luckily, we don't have to do that, because Shore's music was incredible. The score, the original score for Lord of the Rings, was an incredible masterwork. So it's not that the Lord of the Rings is lacking in the epic music. It just so happens that the relationship between these two symbols, these rings of power, are related. So finally, we have Galadriel, the Lady of Lothlorien. And Galadriel is, no one disputes this. No one disputes. No one who are fans of the Lord of the Rings, no scholars of the Lord of the Rings, no one disputes that in the lore, in the mythology of Lord of the Rings, Lady Galadriel is the most powerful being in Middle Earth. She is the most powerful of all the elves, and she is the most powerful of all the ring bearers. And that gets revealed to us in several ways, but especially in the scene with the mirror, where Galadriel offers Frodo the chance to look into her mirror, her magic mirror. And it's really it's a scrying pool is what it is. And after Frodo sees the vision of what has not yet come to pass, what has been, what is, and what has not yet come to pass. He offers her the one ring. And then she has that remarkably powerful and frightening scene of temptation where she says, you know, I would take this, you know, out of good intentions, but, you know, instead of a dark lord, you would have a dark queen, foul and fair and as terrible as the sea, and is that there's that really hyperbolic, frightening scene. Then afterwards she snaps out of it. She goes, I passed the test. Or she was tempted to take the ring and become even more powerful than Sauron himself, because she is the most powerful being in Middle Earth. And with the ring, she would truly become as she predicted in that moment, as she revealed to Frodo what the power of the ring would do to corrupt her, and if and what that would mean to the world, to Middle Earth. So she says, I will remain Galadriel and diminish and go off into the west. But throughout the Return of the King, she has tremendous influence over the outcome of Frodo's journey. There is that moment when Frodo can't get up. He's collapsed under the weight of the burden. There's that beautiful scene where she just smiles and she reaches down and she picks him up, and then he finds himself on his feet again. Right? So these images of the divine feminine. And then earlier we had Arwen, when Frodo was stabbed by the Witch King of Angmar on Weathertop, and he was stabbed with a Morgul blade, and he's been poisoned, and Aragorn says, I can't heal him. This is beyond my skills. And Arwen says, we must get him to my father in Rivendell. And Arwen rides like the wind with Frodo, and then she has to get across the river, and then she crosses the river, and the Nazgul are marching towards. She says, if you want him, come and claim him. And then she speaks her spell, and she awakens the river, and she calls forth the river, and there's that incredible scene where the river comes alive, and the foaming white water takes on the visage of stampeding stallions, and the river comes and washes the Nazgul away. And it's that incredible, an incredible testament to the power of the divine feminine, the waters, right? The cleansing waters of sexuality, the cleansing waters of the sexual waters. Well, Arwen is who calls those up. So one should not go so far as to call Tolkien's work feminist. Many do, or some do, and some still claim that it's misogynist. But anyway, what Tolkien's work is timeless and universal. And the way in which he honors the power of the divine feminine is something that, unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to touch on this on Wednesday because we were cut off before we got so far. But we will endeavor in the new year to produce a full-length video that outlines these and other powerful symbols and in the work, and to do a more thorough unveiling of the mythology, much like we did for the Skywalker and our video, The Skywalker Apocalypse. And hopefully by doing a video in that way, where we can have careful control over all of the clips that we use and how we use them, that we will be able to put together a video and put it online and be able to avoid any of these copyright issues and all these other issues that we were facing, that we simply cannot really do justice to the material in the live stream in terms of sharing with you in real time the scenes or whatnot. Now, if you're familiar with the work, you have your imagination. That's not necessarily important. But okay, so we have some comments. Why don't we jump in here? Benjamin says, Happy New Year, brother. Thank you for sharing your knowledge about esoteric meanings with the symbolism found in popular artworks, and also how to dissolve the ego. We've been exposed to all of these symbols since we were young, and ever since listening to your podcast, you've given us a different ways to perceiving them now. More power and blessings to you. Thank you, Benjamin. It's heartwarming to hear those words. We are grateful to have this opportunity, and it is our pleasure and passion to bring forth and share with you that which we have to share. Roy says, Benjamin Raphael, his voice in Facebook and light apps is not the same. Is it? Is it Roy? I don't know. My voice in Facebook and light apps is not the same. Not sure what you mean by that. Anyway, again, if anyone wants to join the live stream, please do so. Okay, we have a discussion going. Sometimes when we're typing and we're speaking, it might sound different because, of course, when we're typing, is it true that our voice changes when we type? Yeah, isn't it true that though everyone's voice is different when we speak than when we write? I don't know. I mean, your voice is Facebook apps. In Facebook apps is like a robot, but in the Facebook light is beautiful, and in this Facebook live is beautiful and loves it. Okay, so Roy thinks, Roy thinks that when we write, we sound too formal, probably too serious, and when we do live, it's more friendly, it's more conversational, perhaps. It's more accessible. And that's, we sort of can't help that from the standpoint of we were formally trained in English literature and in business writing and communications. So that's our background. So sometimes we perhaps, yes, and when we write things, we come off too formal or too serious. But that's what's normally expected in writing, right? If you read a book, for example, if you buy a book and the book sounds like, somebody just recorded a conversation, it doesn't have the gravitas necessary for the written word. That's why written documents and written scriptures have a greater gravitas to them than when things are spoken. But that's, again, one of the reasons why we're doing these live streams, because not everyone responds well to the written word, and not everyone has the same affinity. And plus, you can't see our eyes, right? You can't see our eyes in the written word. You can't see that we're just a human being doing what we can do. The other thing, of course, is that these live streams they're certainly not scripted. So they're not premeditated in any way. They're unscripted. we're just speaking from our heart. And very often I get surprised. Very often I will hear things or see things or discover things as Attlas speaks through me, and it's for the first time. So this, of course, is all as much for our benefit as it is yours, because if we're right, 2022 and beyond is going to be ever more important, right? The work that we're doing. And we need to become better at it. We need to keep working at it. And so having the opportunity to share with you live is an opportunity for us to practice, for us to develop, for us to grow, and for us to mature into the role that we are here to play and the work that we are here to do. So Benjamin says, yes, that's true. The energy is very much alive when the message is communicated through live. And since it is also not scripted, it is from the heart and the spirit of truth. And Roy says, it's good now. Maybe my signal. Oh, so okay. Roy was not referring to the tone of the writing. He's saying that the actual sound of my voice sounds robotic in Facebook Lite. But in Facebook apps. But in Facebook Lite, it is beautiful, and on YouTube, it's good here in YouTube and Facebook Lite, but on Facebook app proper, it sounds robotic. That's what Roy was trying to say. He wasn't referring to the tone of what we were saying as opposed to writing. He meant that my voice actually sounds robotic for him on the Facebook app. The Facebook app is not a very good app. It's not. It's a lot of people. They will very often comment how the Facebook app is a terrible app. It's not very efficient, and it's a memory hog. So it doesn't surprise me it doesn't work all that well. Proteus says, I prefer the well-written word. I too am well versed in English literature. Any change in medium will obviously reframe the subject. And we recognize that, Proteus, that there are some things and some topics and some approaches that we prefer. That's why we have a blog. We have our blog and we have our written article. And there were some things that we've written. Like, for example, we've written our poem, Ratatoskr and the Seed. I mean, it's a poem. Well, that's certainly not something that we had the capacity to completely improvise live and in person. Well, we could have tried, but with the amount of rhyme and the rhythm and everything that was required for that poem, we did a lot of editing of that. And then there's our dissertation on the topic of fear. Face your fears, many faces. And that blog article is 80,000 words. So it's essentially a book. We don't even know how long it would take to read it aloud, let alone improvise it in a live stream. And we can't even tell you how long it took us to write that article. But 80,000 words, again, it's not so much an article as it is a book. There it is there. So the written word, of course, has its uses and has its place. And we try to make use of it. We try to make use of it whenever possible and however possible. That's why this is something that we had to begin to do this year, because we had done, short form videos, we had done long form videos, we had done shorter articles, longer articles, Facebook posts, and of course our many, many, many memes that we have created. And so the next logical step was to begin doing live streams like this one. And where do we go from here? We don't know what 2022 holds. But all we know is that we have to keep going, because we wish and we hope for the best. We really do. For you, for all you love, and for everyone in the world. We really do hope and wish for the best. But the reality is this, right? This is the reality. The storm is already here. And we encourage everyone to prepare for challenges, and do your best to steel yourself. There is this beautiful, again, going back to Lord of the Rings for the moment, when Treebeard and the Ents are attacking Isengard, and they break the dam, and the water comes rushing in and washes away all the Uruk-hai, and you watch the Ents brace themselves. Now they're trees, right? So they're tree herders, they're Ents, but tree-like, they can root themselves, and you watch them root themselves against the current, and the great tidal wave comes and washes everything away, and all the Uruk-hai and all the forces of Saruman get washed away, but the Ents steel themselves, they root themselves, and they're able to withstand the tidal wave of the current. Now is the time to be like the Ents against the tide that's coming. And because a lot of it will break just against us. And in the same way, at the same time, we also need to be like the wise trees who know how to sway in the wind. Like the flexible trees, the palm trees, who when they face their typhoons and hurricanes, they bend in the wind to be flexible in the storm. They're rooted, just like the Ents, they're rooted in the ground, but they're not so stiff and so inflexible that they snap in the wind. So there's a balance between being rooted and being flexible. And we all will have to find our own balance as the coming storm comes ashore and hits our life. in one or many ways. And that's why in one of our live streams not too long ago, we talked about picking your battles and the esoteric secret to learning what battles to pick, what hill we wish to die on. Because we will be challenged in many, many ways. There will be many different affronts to our freedoms, to our way of life, to our beliefs. And we have the option, if we wish, to skewer ourselves on the pike of any one of those affronts. We have the ability to nail ourselves to the cross in any one of those circumstances. So we were speaking of, for example, the covidiocy, the mask wearing, or getting the jab and medical passports and all of this nonsense. And you will have to decide for yourself what's more important. Is it important for you to go out and make a statement and be seen as and martyr yourself, or be seen to take up some sort of social cause, or to speak out and resist this affront or that affront and end up being thrown in prison or worse, or being thrown into a camp somewhere and being denied the ability to have access to the teachings, for example, to have access to the books that you might study from? You will always have access to your innermost. You will always, well, if you are given the ability to have solitude, even if you're thrown in prison, if in that prison you have an opportunity for solitude and quietude, then you will always have the ability to meditate and go within and pray. No one can, they'll be hard pressed to take that away from you. But if you're thrown into a camp and you're thrown into some place where you're crammed in with who knows how many other people, even that might become problematic. So we must always balance, we must carefully consider what hill to die on, right? What to pick our battles, because we have not yet seen the degree, the extent to which things can be taken, and to the lengths that things might go, and the depths of darkness and despair that this humanity still faces. So it will be important in this new year and the years which follow to be wise and there's really no other way to say it, to pick your battles, to be wise about those battles that you pick, and recognize what you are able to do with freedom, which might be taken away from you. It might become, for instance, we don't know how long we have as Gnostics to be able to openly share these teachings, to openly share with you that which we are sharing with you now, or gnosticteachings.org, or the books of Blavatsky, the books of Drumkeller, of George Ivanovich Gurdjieff, of the books of Samael Aun Weor, of Rudolf Steiner, of Manly Manly P. Hall, we don't know how long it will be before those books are banned and or burned. We don't know how long it's going to be before Gnosticism is outlawed, canceled, using the contemporary vernacular, and that podcasts or live streams such as this one will be considered hate speech, and individuals such as ourselves are hunted and incarcerated. So let us do our best to keep a low profile and not draw an unnecessary attention to ourselves by doing things like, for instance, speaking out openly about the COVIDiocy, because we can call it what it is without drawing attention to ourselves by using specific words and specific language. And we can call it what it is without openly denying the science and without openly threatening the powers that be. Because those who are openly threatening the powers that be, they have a tendency to go missing. They have a tendency, or because they have such power over the media these days, they don't so much go missing as you all know, they end up hanging themselves in their cell, as an example. That particular individual who hung himself in his cell, his wife was recently indicted on charges of aiding and abetting. So it's only a matter of time before she turns up committing suicide or coming to some other tragic end or vanishing off the face of the earth, or who knows. So it's important to recognize that martyrdom has its place, but there are so few of us that it's best that we remain flexible and grounded. So as Proteus says here, these are morbid visions. Far out, man, keep your light under a bushel for the duration of the flood. Yeah, exactly. Right? It's not, well, when you say morbid visions, well, there's no avoiding the facts. With each passing year, we step closer to the inevitable fate of this humanity. So how are we going to meet that end? How are we going to meet that fate? Are we going to prepare ourselves spiritually and steel our hearts and our minds with the light? Because that is what endures. That is what carries us through every darkness. And the darkness, I mean, this is why we always watch Lord of the Rings at this time of year, to remind us that even the smallest person can change the fate of the world. The whole mythos around Lord of the Rings is that a hobbit is entrusted with the ring of power. Try to imagine, in this day and age, in this world, just try to imagine the powers that be entrusting one person with the fate of the world, and that person, in stature and strength, little more than a child in the eyes of the adults, in the eyes of everybody else. It's a hobbit. You know, not long ago, we were in Guatemala, and we were at lake. We were around Lake Atitlan, which is a mountain lake. It's a volcanic lake in Guatemala. And as you head higher up into the mountains, you can spend time with the Maya, the original Maya. And because they're so high up in altitude, and from so many generations, plus the genetics and everything else, their stature is so small, they're so small. Like, we're 6'3", and these Mayans were up to our waist. They were well and truly like hobbit sized. It's remarkable. What's also remarkable about those people is how hardy a people they are. That these women have to carry the stuff up from the boats because there's no roads there. There's no roads on certain sides of Lake Atitlan. There's no road access. The only access to roads is on one side, and then you have to take these water taxis to the other side and to the villages. And then these women carry these things on their head, on their backs, using their forehead. And it's unbelievable. And they bricks and building materials and you name it. And they have to carry them up. I don't even know what kind of elevation, up from the lake itself, because the lake is already at whatever elevation it is above sea level, and plus they go up from there. It's remarkable. But it was one of these moments where you step back in time, but you also step out of your world into a completely different world. And it's like you realize where authors like Tolkien can imagine races like elves and dwarves and hobbits. All you have to do is travel around the world, and you see highland people and lowland people and mining communities and different races and different cultures. And even though we can say that people are the same wherever you go, well, that's true. But on another level, their lives can be very different than ours. Ultimately, we are all the same, but practically, on the day-to-day basis, our lives are very, very, very different. And traveling, we are transported literally into different worlds. and putting ourselves in the shoes of other people and what that conjures up in the imagination can inspire, again, works like Lord of the Rings, where Tolkien says these little people, what if we put the entire fate of the world on the shoulders of a hobbit, of a halfling? And the result speaks for itself. Everyone recognizes the genius of that decision and the heroism and the poetic beauty of the story, and how we all feel at times in our lives that this world is too big for us, that these problems we face, these challenges, these crises are just so overwhelming, and we're just one person, and we're just this one little insignificant person. What difference can we make? That's a question that the hobbits in the Lord of the Rings ask themselves over and over and over and over again. And over and over and over and over again, in the tale, in their hero's journey, they're given an opportunity to show their worth. And they do. And there's that beautiful scene at the end of The Return of the King, where Aragorn is crowned by Gandalf, and he takes Arwen's hand in marriage, and Gandalf says, "Now come the days of the king, may they be blessed." And everybody kneels down in Minas Tirith, there in the courtyard by the undying tree, and everybody kneels down, and so too do the hobbits kneel before Aragorn, and Aragorn says, "My friends," he says, you kneel to no one." And he kneels down, he and Arwen and Gandalf and everybody kneels down to the four hobbits. The four hobbits: Sam, Frodo, Merry, and Pippin, without whom the fate of Middle-earth would have turned out very different. And that is a message and a moral of the story that all of us need to hear and to remember at certain times in our life. That though we may be faced by seemingly impossible challenges and unbeatable odds, and we might feel ourselves so small and so insignificant, none of us is ever burdened with a task greater than our capacity to overcome it. Because that too is embedded into the great law. That it makes no sense to set a hero out to embark on a quest that they cannot achieve. Makes absolutely no sense to task someone with a work that they're incapable of completing. No matter how difficult it might seem, and no matter how stuck we might feel, patience is a virtue. And we did an entire live stream on patience also, not too long ago. Waiting in the dark. About the most important virtue on the path, which is patience. No, we didn't ditch the idea of live cams. We've shared the link several times, but no one has seemed to take us up on it. Azazel, there's the link. All you have to do is put that into your browser, and you should be able to join the live stream. Anna says, meet mankind's fate with truth, love, and integrity, no matter what happens, with gnosis of self and God. There you go. So again, as Azazel, I hope we're pronouncing that right. Azazel points out, the plan was for everyone to be able to join and make this like a Zoom call. And this should be what happens when you click the link. You should be able to join in and add yourself. Add yourself to the stream, and I will put you on the screen. Oops. So, hearkening back, we can look back on some of the other topics that we covered. Well, maybe we'll make this a little bigger. Recently, we talked about how to negotiate your karma. We started a live stream for Europe, for other time zones. So, oh, there's Azazel. Okay.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. How are you?
Your microphone may be muted. You may be, okay. Can't unmute your guest because they chose to mute themselves. Azazel, your microphone is muted. You're going to have to unmute yourself.
Oh, it's muted now.
Can now, can others hear Azazel? Because I can't hear him.
Let's see here.
Let's oops. Yeah, you can hear him? Why can't I hear him? That's interesting.
Yeah, there's some kind of delay between these two websites as well.
That's why.
Let's see here. I'll turn the sound on.
Let's test your speed.
Okay. So I can probably hear you now. Probably have to turn this down though.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Okay, yeah, I can hear you now, Azazel.
Yeah.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you.
Glad you can join us. So this,
Yeah.
okay, everybody can hear him. I can hear him, so it's all good.
Yeah.
Anybody, and nobody's getting any feedback, right?
I don't think so.
I
I
don't think
just
so either. So
yeah.
that's all good. It's all good. So how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. It's been New Year's Eve here, so it's like 3 a.m. here now in Sweden.
Oh, you're from Sweden.
Yes, I am.
Oh, well, Happy New Year then.
Yeah, thanks. Same to you.
How is the COVIDiacy in Sweden these days? Are you guys dealing with big lockdowns and stuff?
Not compared to the USA and Canada, but yeah, we are closer to Norway than we are the US and Australia and all that that's going on in the world. So it's not even close to that.
We're in Canada, so
Yeah.
in Canada in Ontario, and we have medical. We have to show our papers
Yeah.
everywhere we go, and even if I were to go to a movie theater, they scan
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
And without that, you like. So I'm basically under house arrest.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite similar when it comes to the cinemas. You're not allowed to go to the cinemas unless you have been jabbed, I mean, and show them the papers, basically, just as you described.
So this is as much your live stream now as it is ours. So this is your
I
opportunity
guess
to.
so.
This is your opportunity. But you know what? This is our opportunity to invite others to also
Yeah.
join in. If you don't have a camera, it doesn't matter. Even if you just only have a microphone,
Yeah.
and you can come online and still participate. And if you want to chit chat,
Yeah.
have a discussion about stuff. Is there anything you want to ask while you're on here? Well, it's just that you have the floor.
No, nothing in particular that I can think of. I mean, I asked the question last stream about if we could make things worse, basically, when it comes to karma, that we can ask for the yeah, to make things worse, or yeah, pay more karma. And the answer that I received was actually quite correct. So yeah, I wanted to basically thank you for the reply.
Oh well, that's why we're here, and
Yeah.
The short answer is, well, of course, karma is one of these things. Is that
Yeah.
if you are willing, to do, if you are willing to do work and do work for
Yeah.
others and for the sake of others, then
Yeah.
by all means, you have that conversation with your innermost, and if that's what
Yeah.
it's here to do, then by all means,
Yes.
you can do that. Yes, for sure,
Yes.
for sure. And
Yeah, and I realized that, and that was really helpful, really, because I thought that it. Well, I didn't think that it was about myself, because I know that's not the case, right? But because I had to reflect a little bit about the reason why I wanted to pay more karma,
Mhm.
and the answer that I basically received from within was that you have to pay more karma in order to help other people, because in your state now you cannot help other people in the way you're supposed to.
So you have more work to do on yourself.
Yes, exactly, because you cannot help others unless you help yourself.
This is true. This is actually, that's right from the Bible.
Yes.
That's right. God helps those who help themselves.
Yes.
And a lot of people misinterpret that. They take it to say, oh well, if I take care of myself, then God will take care of me.
Yeah.
But you have, through your process, you've
Yeah.
discovered the true meaning of that,
Yeah.
right? Is
Yes.
that God helps others through you, but before
Yeah.
He can do that, you have to make yourself available to Him,
Yeah.
and that re and that and that re- this is a of course, and as you know, that's where the paying the karma comes in, because that's not easy
Yeah.
to do,
No, that's
right?
not easy at all.
So
So it's all about severity and mercy, really.
absolutely. And Proteus asks if this link is what you Azazel used to get on the stream, and the answer is yes.
Yes. Yeah.
So all you have to do is put that link into a browser, and you should come. You'll show up here on StreamYards, and then I will be able to add you to the discussion. I don't
By
know
the
how
way,
many
yeah.
I don't know how many people we can have on simultaneously, but we'll find out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, quick tip is to close down YouTube once you've connected to the new website, because it gets delayed with the sound, and that's quite annoying.
Mm. So, did you do anything special to celebrate Christmas, or was it?
Yeah, I actually celebrated this New Year with my neighbor who lives, yeah, basically 2 steps down.
Oh yeah,
I mean, two floors down.
2 floors up.
Yeah, yeah. So that was quite nice. Yeah, basically just watch the fireworks and such.
Mm. Wow. Okay. Uh, for ourselves, we had a quiet Christmas here with just our father and our father's close partner, but
Yeah.
we were supposed to have family come from the States, and unfortunately they were prevented because of
Hmm.
my nephew. My nephew had a fever, and
Yeah.
of course he went for a COVID test, and that was it.
Yeah.
So they were all trapped in the States. They supposedly will come in January, and we will able to
Yeah.
celebrate. We will celebrate Christmas in
Yeah.
January sometime.
Yeah.
But that's that's they would not have been able to cross the border into Canada.
No.
So
Yeah.
so if if anyone wants to join, please feel free to do so. The link is on the screen. The link is in the chat. We keep posting it and pasting it. It'll take you to live stream. You should be able to follow the instructions there, and then we can add you to the stream. Um, so, how long have you been listening in, Azazel?
For about let's say 30 minutes or something. I just basically came back from all the celebration.
Oh, okay. Oh no, so what about no? I mean, like, how long have you been listening to our live streams?
Oh, that has been quite a long time,
Oh, really?
actually. Yeah. You basically have me as a friend on Facebook, and I've followed you since then, and even a little bit time before that. So
Mm-hmm. Do you find the Monday one useful because it's better closer to your time zone?
yeah, it's a little bit easier
Yeah.
to, yeah. So that's basically after I've eaten dinner and such. So that's a really good time.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we're going to keep doing that on Mondays.
Yeah.
Um, it's hard because for us it's the middle of the day, the middle of the afternoon. So
Hmm.
sometimes it's challenging because we have our various responsibilities. But regardless,
Yeah.
we had a lot of requests for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're going to try to keep doing that.
Yeah.
Um, it's just that occasionally, if for example, when we had to cancel it the last time too, it was because we had we look after our elderly father, so
Yeah.
sometimes he has medical things come up,
Issues.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and so what can you do, right? These things happen.
Yeah.
But we're gonna we're gonna keep doing that moving forward, and we're gonna
Mhm.
see what other things we can do in the new year.
Yeah.
Um, Benjamin says, wait, Erwin Umbro, please, brother. Someone said here that someone said that they would consider joining, but they're like messy or whatever. Wait, I'd love to join, bro, but I look messy because I'm helping wifey to cook. Okay, sure,
Well,
sure. All right,
someone has to be the first, right?
someone. Well, yeah, you know how it is.
Yeah.
Um, not everyone.
Is
Um,
comfortable. Yeah.
not everyone's comfortable, but you don't have to come on with video. You can
No.
come on with
No.
audio
No. Of
only,
course. Yeah.
right? You can. It's like a Zoom call, right? You don't have to use your camera. You can just use the microphone. But some people are still shy about that too. So no pressure. It's just that this is your opportunity. So it's you have the floor. We did
Yeah.
not come prepared to say anything. This is your night. This is new
Yeah.
beginnings. This is New Year's Eve, and I even this is for Azazel. I don't know. Does this look like an old Viking drinking hall to you? Because that's what, according to the internet, it is.
Yes, it basically looks like it. Yeah. Yeah. Looks like a ship that's been turned upside down.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Actually, it does, doesn't it? So, um, the interesting. The a little while. When was it? Someone asked me about how we were talking about white. We must have been talking about white tantra or something like that, and someone
Hmm.
asked me how I met my partner, my
Yeah.
partner for doing white tantra, and I told the story of how she
Yeah.
showed up at my door.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I mentioned to you the fact that she was from Sweden.
Oh, you didn't?
Yeah, she was Swedish.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, she was from Sweden, and um, well, we really hit it off. Obviously, I mean, clearly we hit it off, and
Yeah.
it was very interesting. Her mother came for a visit,
Yeah.
and she went. At that time, my mother was still alive, and so my parents and myself went with her and her mother, and we took her to Niagara Falls,
Yeah.
which is, of course, what you do when someone comes to visit Canada. You have to take them to Niagara Falls.
Right.
and that there's a beautiful Niagara Falls, and then in that area there's this beautiful region called Niagara on the Lake,
Yeah.
and it's the Ontario wine region. Niagara region is the wine region. So there's
Yeah.
the many wineries and very nice restaurants and so on. It's a very very nice part of Ontario. It's on the lake, and so we spent the day with her mother and my parents, and they all got along really well, and it was a lovely time.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just thought I'd share that with you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's quite interesting, actually, because I don't think you mentioned that she was from Sweden last stream, but
No,
now I know.
no, no. But now I thought I'd mention it. And of course, she was blonde with blue eyes.
Yeah. Just like the stereotype.
Is it really?
But
Is it
so,
really?
no,
Is it?
no, 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 no.
Is
It's
it really
true
that
to all
common?
Swedes, I guess. I mean, I'm blonde and blue eyes, of course. So I'm not the one to speak.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, but no, she was a lovely person, and was a really a great privilege to have the
Yeah,
time that we did have together.
yeah,
It was just it just wasn't meant to be, right? I mean,
yeah,
she was married to as we said, she was married to Ajak,
yeah,
and she made that commitment um, years before we had met her, and
yeah,
that was simply. I mean, everybody has their own path, right?
yes,
This is something that we might as well we can talk about. We can mention. Um, in our experience, right? We have not yet met our twin soul. We have not met our twin soul, but we have
oh,
had many soul mates,
hmm,
and we have at a very very young age,
mm,
16
yeah,
came to us what a soulmate is,
yeah,
and the way we described it, and we've described it the same way ever since. If you
yeah,
imagine two paths that are not parallel, but very, very, very slight angle to each other,
yeah,
as they move along, they eventually become close.
Yeah.
And for a time, they appear to be parallel. And for a time, they will overlap.
Yeah.
And they will appear to be overlapping.
Yeah.
And for that time, you will feel so close and so connected to that individual.
Yeah.
And you will recognize them. You will say, they are my soulmate.
Yeah.
But those paths that converge and
Yeah.
overlap for a time will eventually diverge.
Yes.
And this is what we call growing apart, or going
Yeah.
our separate ways, or whatever words you put to it.
Yeah.
But this is what a soulmate is.
Yeah.
And that we can have many, many soulmates in our life.
Yeah.
The people who came into our life for a reason, for a duration, for a period of time, when we needed them, and
Yeah.
they needed us. And sometimes it's a very lopsided relationship.
Yeah.
In the case of in the case of Helen, I won't give away her last name, but
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's first names I think is okay. In the case of
Mm.
Helen, she needed help establishing the Gnostic Center for Ajax in Toronto. That
Yeah.
was her job. I helped her do that, right? And I went around. I was posting flyers with her, and I was doing a lot. I was helping her get established in Toronto,
Yeah.
and well, but frankly, I often feel that we got more out of the relationship on the level of on an esoteric level, on a metaphysical level, on a soul level, a being level,
Yeah.
because of the progress that we made practicing white tantra together.
Yeah.
Because we had a lifetime of comprehensions sort of saved up, right? By the time when she
Yeah.
arrived, she was present. She was in the room with us when we had that experience that we wrote about in our post called Touched by the Christ.
Yeah.
We were not alone in the room. She was with us in the room when that happened. So we have a witness to that event. She witnessed that event. And that event, and her witnessing that event, was one of the reasons why she went her separate way.
Yeah.
Because she saw something which, it's not right to say that it scared her. It didn't scare her. It just was another piece of evidence that you could not ignore.
Yeah.
And but she, while we were crumpled up on the floor, and completely overwhelmed and
Yeah.
crying and like curled up in the fetal position, she was cradling us in her arms,
Yeah.
right? And she was witnessing us going through this metamorphosis.
Yeah.
And then that's when she realized, she said that where we're going, she's not at
Yeah.
that level. But on her level, the level that she was at, and the level where she is at, and
Mm.
her dedication and devotion to Ajax and being an instructor,
Yeah.
Gnostic instructor, and spreading the teachings and everything else, we helped her on that level, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was the level that she needed. That she needed the progress. She needed her
Yeah.
progress at that level. So
Yeah.
I mean, it was a mutual exchange.
Yeah.
It's just that we we exchanged and got out of it what we needed at
Yeah.
our level. That's all.
Yeah.
So, oh, no one else is gonna take us up on this offer to come join our conversation.
Yeah.
You know what? I should have offered free beer or something.
Beer?
I should have offered free beer. Come join the discussion.
Oh,
Have a
yeah,
drink.
that would be successful, I think. I don't know.
I don't know how. I don't know. Can you download free beer? I don't think they have that technology yet.
No, I don't think so either.
Anyway, if you've just joined us, we're now up to 15 people. There is a link. It's in the chat. It's on the screen. If you put that link into your browser, you can come and join us live. You don't have to. Joel L says I would, but I got to do some things tonight. No worries. Oh, you can pop on for 5 minutes too. It doesn't matter. You don't have to stay for the whole, whatever. Pop on for 5 minutes. Say hello. Say Happy New Year's. You don't have to turn on your camera. You can just turn on your mic and just join by voice. It's all good. But if you have a question to ask, if you have something you want to share, tell a joke, tell a funny story, this is your opportunity.
Yeah.
Aha! We have a taker. All right.
Oh, good.
Yo.
Hello. How
Hello.
are you?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you quite well.
Excellent. Excellent.
And this is good because now everybody can see that they don't have to actually have their camera on.
Yeah, my apartment's a bit dark. I prefer not to have the overhead lighting on, so I use lamp light, and it just doesn't. My phone's in my hand, so I just kind of want it in my pocket as well. So yeah.
We have an interesting question here. Aleftirius asks, is it possible to have a white Tantra exchange in a dream? The answer is no. No, it isn't. And the reason why it isn't is because a dream takes place in the astral plane. But to work with white Tantra, we're working in the ninth sphere, meaning we have to work in the fourth dimension. The astral plane is the fifth dimension. When we're in a dream, we have left our body. We are in the fifth dimension, in the astral plane. We can have sexual encounters there, right? You can have virtual sexual encounters, dreamlike encounters, but you can't work with the fourth dimension, in the fifth dimension. Your fourth dimension is back in your body. Hello and welcome, Kim.
Hi.
Glad you could join us.
Hi. Thank you. I don't know what we're talking about.
Well,
thank you for having me.
Most of the time, I don't know what we're talking about either.
We were talking about white Tantra in dreams, and we had a question about that, basically.
Yes, Eleftheria just asked a question. Is it possible to have a white Tantra exchange in a dream? And the answer is no. What you can have in a dream, though, is a wet dream. And that is a very common occurrence, especially for men, when they are, but also for women, if you are have an experience with an incubi or a succubi, or what's also known as astral larvae, come and fornicate with us while we sleep, and we wake up, and we've had an accident, so to speak. That's possible, but to have white Tantra in a dream is not doable. It's required the physical connection and the electromagnetic connection of the vital bodies, right? So that connection is not present if we are just in the astral plane. We are removed from that place. Now it's another question. Can you have a white Tantra connection in Jinn state in the fourth dimension? The answer there is theoretically it's possible, but entering into the Jinn state takes so much energy and effort already that probably most of your vital energy is just going towards being able to hold and be present in Jinn state. And it's not to the best of our knowledge, that's something that perhaps if someone is a very, very, very powerful initiator or master or something, they're probably able to do such things. But for us at our level, it's probably not possible.
Yeah, but we never really know what someone's level is, do we?
We
I mean,
never
it's not
really know.
something that people go around talking about too, right? I mean, how would you describe a Jinn state?
How would you describe it?
Yeah.
Well, there's actually different ways of being in Jinn state. One way is leaving the body. One way is taking your physical body into the fourth dimension. There's actually different ways of being in Jinn state. How would you describe it? That's a good question. With most spiritual experiences, it's beyond description, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
How do you describe being? Have you ever projected in the astral plane? And how do you describe that to someone?
It's impossible.
Right?
Yeah.
You can describe it.
So even if I was in Jinn state, I wouldn't know how to describe it, and I don't think I'd talk about it with many people, anyways.
Exactly, and that's the wise approach, because normally the only reason why we share some of our experiences with all of you is because it's our goal to provide you information for you to achieve those experiences for yourself.
Yeah.
And if in offering you our experiences, you see some potential, or you get some information, or you get some guidance, or some insight into how you can have your own experiences, then it's worthwhile for us to share them with you. But generally speaking, it's frowned upon to go around talking about your experiences to other people.
Mhm.
Right? It's just, generally speaking, it's just not something that we do, and it's, believe me, it's not something that we start our conversations with. Right?
No.
It's like, hey, how are you? Let me tell you what just happened to me in the astral plane. Right? It's like, generally speaking, we don't do that. Michael,
I'm really hush up about it.
Well, yeah, well, you don't have to. Yeah, okay. So if people ask you about it, whatever, you use your judgment, use your wisdom. Michael says he would describe it as shifting the physical body into hyperspace, and we're not where we are. And he says Jinn state is an ancient science. It is absolutely an ancient science, and it's a metaphysical science. We're not so much talking about how would you describe it intellectually. The conversation was leaning towards how would you describe the experience of it, of being
Yeah.
in Jinn state, and the answer is it's indescribable.
Yeah.
It's just like being in the astral plane. It's like, well, being awake in a dream, right? Having a lucid dream. Well, that is what it is, and that is how you can describe it. But there's no. That's like trying to tell someone what it's like skydiving. Or what it's like being seeing the Grand Canyon, right? It's like, or what it's like seeing the Great Pyramid. You can't describe it, what it's like to be there. You can't.
No.
You can't do it justice. You can't do it justice. You can try. You can, and maybe if you write an epic poem about it, about how how it made you feel and everything else. Proteus asked the question though, Jinn state, meaning what is that? So again, Michael describes it here as shifting the physical body into hyperspace. It's taking the physical body and dematerializing it. So taking the whole of the physicality that is our makeup and putting it into the fourth dimension, which is the dimension of vital energy or electromagnetic energy. And in no uncertain terms, even though Michael says Jin state is an ancient science, it is an ancient science, but it is also the science by which UFOs are able to travel and perform the incredible dynamic movements that
Yeah.
they've been reported to do. Because when you are in Jin state, the laws of physics do not apply to you, because you are in the fourth dimension, not in the third dimension, and there is no physicality anymore. You have zero mass in Jin state. If you have zero mass, then you are not limited by the laws of physics, and you're not limited by the law of
Time.
relativity as it was described by Einstein, which means you can move faster than the speed of light. And so, by the way, this is also how Master Abbonamento, known as Jesus, walked on water, right? Because if you put yourself in Jin, there are levels, and levels. Yeah, Michael shares a valuable link here that describes all of this in greater detail. Because there are levels and levels, right? So you can put yourself into Jin state where you completely disappear, but you can also put yourself into Jin state where you are still partially visible. In other words, you are an apparition, right? You're essentially like a ghost.
That's interesting, because I had an experience that I'm still trying to get back to when I was about 7, where I got so small. I would get so tiny. I would get as small as an atom. And that was happening in my childhood. And I feel like I am practicing towards getting to that point again somehow. It's kind of unconscious that I'm practicing that, but I'm practicing that again, like 40 years later. But I know what that feeling is. It's like I was just about to disappear almost. As small as an atom.
So that is definitely related to Jin state, because if you have read the Bhagavad Gita and the Ramayana, you know the story of Hanuman and Rama, and you know that Hanuman is the god who develops powers. And one of the powers that Hanuman has is the ability to grow himself in size and also to shrink himself in size. That power is related to Jin state, because of course you're not physically if the physical body is on top of the vital body. The vital body is the foundation. The fourth dimension is the foundation of the physical body. So the physical body will follow where the vital body goes. So to make yourself very small or to make yourself very large is all dependent upon if you're consciously using your willpower to shift and alter your vital body. So being able to take the physical body into Jin state, again, likewise, it's all related to this, because you can't actually, that's why materialist science is so lost, because they're approaching physicality from the wrong direction. Right? Because if they were only to embrace the science of Nikola Tesla and Walter Russell and approached the physical universe from the fourth dimension, all of science as we know it would be completely revolutionized overnight. Because all of the science of the other humanities and from other planets is metaphysical science. Right? If metaphysics is the foundation of physics, why try to make physics the foundation of everything? It's the tail wagging the dog. So
that would be an evolutionary. That that would make a big difference in the world if they did approach it that way.
It would revolutionize everything we know. And
Yeah.
Master Samael predicted that the fourth dimension would be discovered, and so it's possible that it's waiting around the door, the corner. Someone, we can hear ourselves, so I don't know if someone's can maybe turn their volume a little bit down. Anyway, we're getting some feedback. That's all we're saying. One of the things that we are hoping to achieve with our Peapod Life Initiative and with Genesis Eco Fund, which is our educational initiative related to ecosystems, is the introduction of the Walter Russell paradigm, the metaphysical paradigm of science. If we can get established with Peapod Life, and we can use our U method technology to track to do a human impact study of the benefits of living in an ecosystem, the obvious question is going to be, what is conferring all these benefits? And we have the answer to that, and that is the superior fourth dimensional, the electromagnetic field of the ecosystem, right? Well, that's the superior, that's the Jin state, that's the fourth dimensional vital body, the vital energy of the ecosystem. To be a part of that, obviously, is going to confer benefits on the physical body and the emotional body and the mental body. So we have the answer to that question in advance. Now all we need to do is have the means, the funds, the ability to build our prototypes and get it lived in and do our human impact studies, and to be able to demonstrate those benefits and show that to the materialist scientists. And then when they ask, well, what's the mechanism by which this works? Well, I would say the mechanism is metaphysical. And that's on that basis we can proceed with that larger discussion, right, of that metaphysicality. Andrew's back. So we're going to read something that Joel L. wrote in the chat here very quickly. When we can restore centripetal forces, self-organization in wave understanding holds keys to energy physics, alchemy, the psychology of psychokinesis, and so much more. Intro animations to the new wave mechanics, fractalfield.com. Okay, so that link is there. Thanks for sharing that, Joel. Erwin says, we go to sleep every night to 963 hertz. It's so peaceful. Does anybody else use any of those types of meditation CDs, music, whatever frequency?
No. I used to, and then I had a Kundalini awakening right afterwards, but I stopped for quite a while now. But yeah, I did before. I don't know if it was the cause of a Kundalini activation, but I was doing it.
What do you call a Kundalini activation? How do you describe it, or what do you believe it is?
Physical and metaphysical.
Mm-hmm.
It shot me right on the spine and went up my back,
mm-hmm.
like a 10.5 earthquake. It's kind of no mistake in it. No drugs. I was sober.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I decided I was kind of on the brink of life or death, though. And so decided to, hey, let me meditate on some chakras, and I didn't really even know what a chakra was. So I'm kind of like the initiate that doesn't really have much knowledge other than experience. So so I didn't really know what was happening, but found out later that that's what it was. And I mean, Jin state, probably I am in for 4 years now.
Well, if you were in Jinn state, you wouldn't be able to interact with the physical world. So
Well,
you come in and out of Jinn state. There's no one's questioning that you would have experiences of Jinn state, but Jinn state means that you lose your physicality.
oh, well, I'm in some kind of a state where I have a lot of movement in my body. I have a lot of spiritual, metaphysical movement. So that's what I mean by Jinn state. I don't really know, but it's something. And it happened after a Kundalini experience.
So the energy, so the fourth dimensional energy, the vital energy, we call it prana or call it chi, depending on, you can call it vital energy, sexual energy, prana, chi. It's just really language.
Yeah.
But do you practice pranayama?
The breathing techniques? Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I do. I meditate for I'm in practice for many hours a day.
Okay.
I physically practice with my third eye and things in my body, like I guess you'd say metaphysical things. So releasing deep wounds is what it's helping me do. Looks to be like the main focus is to break up matter.
Like blocks that you're experiencing in your physical body.
Yeah. Yeah, that seems to be the main purpose. And what the final result is, I don't know still.
A lot of people will focus on and work with, you may be familiar with Reiki, and you may be familiar with well, of course there's acupuncture and acupressure, and we worked with a what's the right way to describe them? A energetic chiropractor. This is the best way we can describe them. Working with straightening our own spine.
Yeah.
By working with the meridians and chakras down the spinal column and in the back, opening them and working with energy and using breath work, but focused breath work into bringing the spine into greater alignment. Because even though we can say that the physical body follows the energetic body, the two are interconnected and intimately interconnected. So if we have, through the course of bad habits or some sort of energetic influences over many years, we've developed kind of a crooked spine or some other blocks. They're energetic blocks, but they have physical manifestations, and the two things are intimately connected. So that's why when it came to doing, and we had terrible back pain and sciatica and other things, right? So when we found this chiropractor. We said, but you know, she doesn't crack backs. She doesn't physically manipulate the spine. She says, what we're going to do is we're going to work on the energy and aligning the energetic channels around the spine and along the spine, and then that will bring the spine back into alignment. And that we knew that is what we needed. That would work for us. We knew that physical manipulation of the spine is not going to work for us. Maybe it'll work for other people for whatever they need, you know, but for our purposes, we understood what the spine and the spinal column, how important the spinal column is, and that the spinal column needs to. So if you had a shock in your spinal column and a release of energy, then that's related to all of these sorts of alignments and whatever. But in order to be able to use and flow and work with the prana on in a more free flowing way. So if you feel the energy, if you feel the prana flowing through you more freely, that is an opportunity for you to work with it in a more conscious way and directing it more consciously. And then that can lead you further along in your work, in your efforts.
Yeah. Tai Chi and movement seems to help me a lot. Qigong, that helps.
Yeah, Qigong, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Qigong.
We're going to take, we did, in our case, we did what we mentioned, and then we did Kung Fu. But when we say we did Kung Fu, we worked with a Kung Fu Sifu and a studio, which did a lot of slow form, which basically is Tai Chi. Tai Chi is basically slowed down Kung Fu.
Yeah.
And we actually did Qigong in that same Kung Fu studio. So we did, so that Sifu studied under Grandmaster Simon, who was one of the first Westerners to bring Kung Fu into the West. Grandmaster Simon was a contemporary of Bruce Lee, and he actually starred with Bruce Lee in Enter the Dragon and other films. And he was my Kung Fu Sifu's Sifu. So and so we got a version of Kung Fu which was very, very, very traditional and very, very, very wrapped up in let's say much more of the original Shaolin tradition. We did a lot of the animal forms, we did all the slow forms, and so it was not a Kung Fu studio where you went to learn how to kick the shit out of people. Let's put it that way. It was a Kung Fu studio where you went to work with energy and to learn how to be more in your body and make your body more of a vessel. Proteus, are you there, my friend?
I'm here.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm in Australia, so it's really hot midday here.
Oh my goodness, Australia.
Yeah.
You know, this is really interesting. We had no idea we had such a cosmopolitan audience.
Yeah. I also do Kung Fu.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was intrigued to know what form and styles you practiced.
Honestly, we don't practice it anymore.
Okay.
We can't say that we no longer have access to our Kung Fu studio. It's in Toronto. We live in Guelph, and so we no longer go actively to any Kung Fu studio. Nor could we, because probably because you're in Australia, you can relate to this. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. We're not jabbed, so we can't go anywhere public.
We can kind of relate to it, but yeah, like lately I live in New South Wales, and the laws for the last like couple of months have been like around and turned around and all that sort of thing. Like, you know, like there's been vaccine passports and one moment, and then the next not. Like no masks one moment, and then the next not. Lots of like premiers have been ousted, and new ones have come in. They've changed the laws around and all that sort of thing. Yeah, it's been crazy times, but yeah, we can currently like go around in public with no vaccine passport. Although we can't enter some pubs and things like that. Pubs and we can go to the cinema, but not pubs. But I don't go to pubs anyway, so like, it doesn't really bother me. But...
Well, we're glad to have you here anyway. You certainly don't need a passport to join our live stream. So that's a good thing. There are a couple comments here in the chat that we're going to try to sound off here. Joseph says, could sound as a simple question. How harmful is for alignments popping the back? Luckily, I've stopped that as much as I used to. Now, how harmful could it be? That's a question that, for our intuition on this, was that for us, we should not allow anybody to mess with our back physically. That was our intuition on it, was that it didn't feel right for us to go get our back cracked. For somebody else who's not on the path, who's not, practicing pranayama, who's not working on awakening kundalini or raising it up the spinal column or any of those things, they're just in pain or suffering or whatever. And a lot of people have experienced a lot of medical benefits from going to a chiropractor. So it's possible that the physical alignment of the back can and does also align the etheric body, the vital body, because the two are connected. And that if someone is suffering from a lot of energetic illnesses, sometimes going to a chiropractor can solve a lot of those other medical problems, medical concerns. And if that is the only thing that's available to them, then that's what they should do if they have no other options. However, if what you're dealing with is something like what we were dealing with, it's much, much, much more subtle, right? You don't take a sledgehammer where a fine chisel and a tap, 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 tap is what you need, right? Or, a fine polishing, rock paper is what you need. You don't take a sledgehammer to that rock. So it's just a different level of tool for a different level of work. Could it be really harmful? Could someone do a lot of damage? Well, if the chiropractor is good and he's bringing your spine back into alignment, then it might be a rough and a crude process, but we're not sure how much damage they can do. Where the damage comes into play is what we do to our own spines, in terms of our posture, in terms of sitting at desks all day or carrying heavy things or lifting heavy things the wrong way, and the damage we do to our own spinal column is something that we should pay more attention to, so that we don't have to end up at a chiropractor, right? And try to fix that and try to reverse that damage that we've done because we have yanked our spine out of alignment. That's something that came to us intuitively, and we have to take care of our spinal column, and we went out and bought, luckily we got it at a discount, but literally it's like a $200 backpack, just a very small backpack, but it's like one of these $200 ones that has the built-in suspension system and everything else, so that we could set it up for ourselves. So when we went grocery shopping, or we were doing whatever, traversing, going around Toronto or whatever, or wherever we were going, we were carrying our laptop or whatever we were carrying was in our backpack, but we could wear it properly, strapped to our back, and we were not putting unnecessary strain on our back, because we used to have this crappy backpack at university, just this cheap backpack. We would carry like loads of textbooks in it and everything else, and in no uncertain terms, that's when we screwed up our back, was carrying all this heavy crap in this crappy University of Guelph backpack that had like no suspension, had no proper anything. And we were in our 20s, so we thought we were invincible, right? And sure enough, when we got to our 30s, we had all these like back pain and sciatica and all these problems. So we need to be more conscious and more careful with our physical machine. We can do more damage to our back, I think, than we should be really worried about. As long as the chiropractor is good and has a and has a good reputation, and if you speak to your chiropractor, don't hesitate to talk about energy. Don't hesitate to talk about the vital body, the subtle body, the energetic channels, because if your chiropractor is good, he will be aware of this. And he will say, listen, I'm conscious of that. I'm aware of that. I know what I'm dealing with here, and I know how delicate it is, and I'm not, and I'm going to treat it the right way. Have that conversation with your chiropractor before you let them start manipulating you. But if you can, look for a chiropractor that works with energy to realign your spine. Jennifer asks or says, I have been in several car accidents and have major neck and hip issues. That chiropractor sounds like what I need. How do you find an energetic chiropractor? Ours is now located in Milton, Ontario, and their clinic was called the Source Center. But if you give us some time, or send us a private message on Facebook or something, we will try to. Where are you located? We can maybe try to help you find one in your area, or just maybe do a Google search. Start there, but I can look back in my files and get the name of the organization, because the name of the organization that she trained with and she studied with, there's a book, they have a leader, like one of these, he's kind of like a guru type person, I suppose, but he developed the program and the training that they provide, and they have like conferences, annual conferences or conventions, I suppose is the right word. And so they have practitioners right across North America and probably around the world. So if you give us a chance, we can get you the name of the organization and perhaps to the website, and then we can direct you in that way. Michael says, wasn't the original Garden of Eden in the fourth dimension? And when Adam and Eve fell, that was symbolic of man's descent downward into 3D physicality. The answer is yes. That is what took place in the Lemurian epoch. Now, we were cast out into the third dimension, into the desert, but that didn't mean we weren't already able to come here. So to be in the fourth dimension is to be as the animals are. Now, animals, as we all know, animals and plants have physical bodies. We interact with them all the time. We know that they have physical bodies, but the souls of the animals, the elementals, they're in the fourth dimension. They're in Jinn state. And animals can, because they're innocent, they can leave their bodies whenever they want. We can't. We can't do that. We've lost that ability. So to be in the fourth dimension didn't mean that we were just in the fourth dimension. It just meant that we were awake in the fourth dimension, and we were aware that we are energetic beings and we possess physical bodies. And that was our level of awareness. When we fell asleep, our consciousness fell asleep. Now we believe that we're physical beings that have spiritual bodies, because that's our point of view, that's our perspective. We were cast out into the desert. Animals, that's not their experience. The elementals of animals, Master Samael writes about this. You can go to fourth dimension. If you travel to the fourth dimension, you can see the elementals of animals, like birds, for example. They're like little children, and they're playing and stuff in the fourth dimension. They don't look like birds. So this is a mystery. This is a great mystery of the esoteric world, is that this three-dimensional world that we live in, like, for example, none of us look like this, the way we think we look. If you awaken in the astral plane and ask to see yourself as you really are, you can see your innermost being face to face. You can see what you really look like, your true self. Your true self looks nothing like you. Nothing. That's a very jarring experience to have, but when you have it, boy, does it start putting things in perspective. And when we talk about this reality that we have is like a video game, like an MMORPG, and all of us, this face, this hair, these eyes, this body, this voice, this personality, it's just a character. It's just a character. Our player doesn't look anything like our character. And if you've ever played a video game, you know that it is very unlikely that the character you're playing in the video game actually looks like you. Even if you spend hours trying to make it look like you, it's never going to look like you. So that's one of the mysteries of but that's the point that Michael was making here, is that our birthright as true human beings, Buddhas, an awakened humanity, exists primarily in the metaphysical world, and they can enter into their physical body and leave their physical body whenever they want. In fact, as we were describing a little while ago, that's how the enlightened humanities traverse the universe, and with their spaceships, and that's why the concept in Star Trek came to Roddenberry, this idea of beaming. You know, they have the transporters, the teleporters, and they can beam themselves down to the planet. Roddenberry had the intuition that we can dematerialize and rematerialize in a different location. That's his technocratic answer to the intuition that he had, that enlightened humanities have this ability, just like they have the ability to go faster than light speed. Because Star Trek is a divinely inspired science fiction property. It's just that Gene Roddenberry interpreted it as it must be about the future. He didn't realize that it's actually an allegory. His allegory about the future of humanity is an allegory about the present day state of enlightened humanities. The United Federation of Planets is real. It's here. It's now. Right? It's called the Universal Brotherhood of the White Lodge. And there are members of enlightened humanities here now assisting this humanity as it transitions through its Kali Yuga. Eleftheria states, Buddhists believe it can take many lifetimes to reach enlightenment. Kabbalist magicians claim their method can shorten this, possibly into one lifetime. What is your thought on this? Buddhists also know that it is possible to reach enlightenment, well, not just enlightenment, but mastery in one lifetime. Buddhists call that the path of the Bodhisattva. That is the path that the Buddha himself took. It is a path of suffering and sacrifice for humanity. It is a lifetime of suffering and sacrifice for humanity, and paying all of one's karma in one lifetime. But here's the thing. You and I we shouldn't say unequivocally that this is the case, but our intuition on this is that you and I don't get to make that choice. It is up to our innermost being if they are on the path of the Bodhisattva or not. Because you will probably encounter many, many people who are on what's called the spiral path. But those people have already reached nirvana, so they're already attained enlightenment in a previous lifetime. And so they're reincarnating, and they're coming down to work a little bit on themselves, to work a little bit on their ego. And then at the end of this life, they go back to nirvana. They're taking what's called the spiral path. The path of the Bodhisattva is known as the direct path. The direct path up the first mountain of initiation. And that is a choice that we are given once we have completed the minor mysteries, and right before we enter the major mysteries. And that is a choice that our innermost being makes. Well, we make it because we are our innermost being, but we won't know that we've made that choice until we've made it. And if we've made that choice in a previous lifetime, we may have forgotten what choice we made. Again, this is part of the mystery and part of the fact that you, Eleftheria, and I, Attila, are just a personality in a body. We're just a vessel, right? Initiations don't belong to us, right? We're here to serve our innermost being on his journey, and his decisions we must abide by. We have no, right? The tail cannot wag the dog. And if the tail wants to wag the dog, that's called the left-hand path. And that's why so many people fall into the left-hand path, because they don't like the idea of that they're not in control of their own lives. And that is how the ego gains control of them, by tricking them into falling into that downward spiral. But the Buddhists know very well that they can reach enlightenment in one lifetime. But again, they have to do what they have to do. And so they're not, and now Master Samael taught the direct path, but he was speaking to monads. He was speaking to beings. He was encouraging our innermost, so that when we complete the minor mysteries and enter into the major mysteries, that we choose the direct path. And that's the path of white Contra, and that's the path of the Bodhisattva. It's the path beyond just enlightenment, because there are levels and levels and levels and levels. This is the other thing that we must try to grasp. But the Buddhists know this as well. It's just that in Buddhism, just like in all traditions, including Gnosticism and all traditions, these higher levels and these deeper mysteries, the major mysteries, are precisely that. They're for initiates of a higher level. And they are meant for those initiates who have achieved that level. And it's not deemed appropriate to broadcast to the world these higher mysteries and these deeper mysteries and higher levels to those who have not yet even achieved the first few levels.
They wouldn't understand it.
Number one, they wouldn't understand it. And number two, there's multiple good reasons to keep all of this, to keep them in the dark. But there's so many good reasons to one of them is they can't understand it. Number two is you don't want to discourage them, right? If someone's starting out as starting out skiing or mountain climbing or whatever, you don't send them to climb K2. You don't show them Everest.
No.
Right? You take them on smaller smaller bite-sized chunks. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So you take them step by step by step by step. You don't want to overwhelm them with all this stuff. But also, it's also a matter of preparedness, but also that one has an opportunity to demonstrate one's commitment. In the past, for example, the knowledge about white Tantra was a closely guarded secret. And the reason why it was a closely guarded secret is because we're speaking there about the most powerful force in the universe and how to harness it. And as we all know, the line that separates Christ from Antichrist is a hairline. The line that separates a nuclear reactor from a nuclear bomb is a hairline. And so too, the line that separates white Tantra from black Tantra is a hairline. Now, the reason why Master Samael broke all the taboos and started openly teaching white Tantra is because by that time, the whole world was already practicing black Tantra. There was nothing. There was no risk of the cat was already out of the bag. And I mean, to this day, I mean, all you have to do is you go into any New Age bookstore, and the shelves are crammed with books on manifesting desires, and it's all black magic, right? So at this point, there was nothing left to lose. Master Samael said, "Look," and Master Samael is the region of Mars and the god of war. He's like, "Hell, we're at war. We're at war." And desperate times calls for desperate measures. And if the Black Lodge is arming and equipping its peons with their most closely guarded secret, because for millennia it was a closely guarded secret. Black magic was not publicized until really it started coming into the fore in a public way in the late 19th, early 20th century, where the whole occultism and everything became fashionable during the so-called Enlightenment. And that's what Helena Blavatsky, that was the wave that she caught, and that what Manly P. Hall came out and went public and started revealing the secrets of the Masons. This was all like revolutionary. Like this was all preparing for and getting caught up of the energies that were coming along with the age of Aquarius, which began in the 60s when it really exploded and all this stuff, and the so-called New Age was born. But all of the esoteric unveilings that happened by Steiner and Drumkeller and Blavatsky and Gurdjieff and Manly P. Hall from the late 19th century through to the mid 20th century, all of that, this unveiling, this revelation, was all preparing for the dawn of the age of Aquarius and for the end of the Kali Yuga, which we are now in, when it was all out war, which is now we're all out spiritual war. And the two world wars were the physical manifestation of that, and all of the wars since, the Vietnam War and all the other wars since, it was the physical manifestation of the psychological spiritual war, which is taking place here and now. And it's all related to the birth of the age of Aquarius and the end of the age of Pisces and the death of this humanity, the Kali Yuga. It's all connected. It's all intertwined, interconnected. Does anybody want to jump in there?
We do have a question from Kim, I can see, from the private chat.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes. Can someone practice black magic unconsciously?
I was just typing an answer to that myself.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, I think absolutely you can, and we live in a very dark age where there's many unconscious black magicians. Like with all those published books on like desire manifestation and all that sort of thing, as you just suggested, and there's many not very secret lodges of black magic.
No, they're quite open, actually. I would say.
Well, okay. You can and you can't. Now, what do we mean by that?
Yes.
What we mean by that is most people who practice black magic don't know that it's black magic.
Yes.
They believe that they're being spiritual and they're manifesting their destiny and they're manifesting their desires and they're attracting the abundance of nature into their life and they're attracting their perfect partner. And you know the story, right? You know the propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
You know how it's sold. I'm sure all of us have watched The Secret. Okay. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So we know the propaganda, right? And so in that sense, you can't you can practice it unconsciously. And another way, we also know that you have to actively and consciously practice manifesting your desires. You have to actively and consciously practice harnessing the sexual force to get what you want, to do actively visualization. Even if you're not even in the new age category, even if you're just in the category of so-called self-help and performance-oriented, success-oriented life coaching, and because there's different levels and levels and levels of this, right? So there's a level of this propaganda, which is merely on the on the level of power of positive thinking, the power of positive mental states, of the power of visualization. So Olympic athletes, for example, will visualize themselves jumping, 3 meters or whatever it is. And so then they can go and jump 3 meters because they've spent all this time visualizing it, right? All of these people are practicing black magic. But they, of course, have no idea, even they've never even heard the term in the circles that they walk. But they have to consciously practice what they're practicing. Right? It is a practice. It is a magic. It is a discipline that someone has to consciously do. They might be they might not know what they're really doing, but they still have to do it, if that makes any sense.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Can someone accidentally perform black magic? And theoretically, yes, but practically speaking, no, not really. Right? So
yes, it's on a spectrum as well. I mean, it's not as dangerous as it is if you do it consciously.
Now,
the karma gets worse if it's conscious.
Now, having said that, do you all remember a few years ago they had the Olympics, and it was in England, wasn't it? The Olympics,
Yeah.
and they had. Do you remember the opening ceremonies? They had all the beds, and it was this, and they were saying that this part of the opening ceremony was paying tribute to the eradication of polio around the world and the vaccines. Go back and Google it or YouTube it. The opening ceremony from that Olympics. And
yeah, I think I remember it. Yeah,
that was what some people in the conspiracy crowd call predictive programming. But what it was a massive global, worldwide black magic spell, getting the entire world to participate in the manifestation of now what we're living through.
Yeah.
So now the entire world was participating, and unconsciously, because when we were watching that opening ceremonies, were any of us in our mind watching that, saying, predicting that, this is a black magic spell, and there's going to be this thing called the Covidiacy in 2021?
No.
Not exactly, but I know that like nearly every Olympic event has a black magic ritual at the beginning of it in the opening.
Yeah.
Well, and then so was 9/11 a black magic ritual,
Yes. Yeah.
right? The destruction of the two towers, right?
Yeah. Yes.
The Jacqueline and Boaz, right? The tearing down of the tree of life. I mean, come on. We did a video on this, in fact, talking about the incredibly powerful black magic spell that was. So in that sense, now, can we unconsciously participate in black magic? Well, then clearly the answer is yes, especially when we are being manipulated and we are being exposed to very, very sophisticated, highly ritualized black magic spells that are being that we are being roped into as unwitting and unwilling participants. So this is how, let's face it, Joel Osteen, right? If you're familiar with Joel Osteen and his mega church in the United States, you know, he built his mega church, has 80,000 people in an enclosed stadium. Every single one of those people, each and every time he does a broadcast, are being harnessed in a massive black magic ritual. All of their energy is being siphoned and harnessed and channeled. Look, we know a lot about this because we've mentioned to you many times that we studied theater and drama. And we studied under a acting sensei that taught us acting like a martial art, to use energy and basically sculpt with energy. And we know from our own intuitions and from our own studies that the amphitheater, the ancient amphitheater, was called an amphitheater. And if you look at it inside profile, the amphitheater, if you take an amphitheater and take a section of it inside profile and observe side by side with a modern day speaker, they're identical.
Yeah.
And every Greek amphitheater had this massive cavity underneath the stage. Because you know the amphitheater, the stage is in the bottom in the middle, and the seats are in the round like a stadium seating. And there's this massive cavity, and every single textbook and encyclopedia that you look up amphitheater, they will show you this drawing, and then that cavity underneath, they will say, oh, this is for storage. This is where they stored props and sets and all this. See, this is how stupid these intellectuals and historians are.
Yeah.
Right? That cavity was sealed off. There was nothing in that space. That space was a cavity to harness energy. It was a pool. The energy would collect. All the energy would go down into the cavity, and that cavity would serve like the magnet in a speaker. And the actors would draw up that energy through the stage into their body and project out. That's why Plato could describe how the theater was so sacred and was such a divine and holy place, and why Plato described you could go to the theater and have a cathartic experience. You could have a comprehension, an epiphany, an enlightenment in the theater, because it was a sacred space, and the actors were using the energy in order to put on display the egos, right? Because we're talking about Greek tragedy here, the tragic flaws, right? Whatever egos that Oedipus or whoever was suffering from. And they could so energize the suffering and so energize and give manifestation and life and to those egos that people in the audience could have a cathartic experience, could have a comprehension and comprehend their own ego in that moment, because their energy was so being used. And why this is why Plato said you cannot put real life on the stage, because it is a vulgarity, because the stage is a sacred space. Well, now take that science, that metaphysical science, that know-how, that knowledge, and apply it to the black arts, right? And that's why these mega churches are the way they are, and why they're designed the way they're designed, and why Joel Osteen can harness all the sexual energy, all the vital energy of all the lambs coming to slaughter, and he harnesses all that and he builds with it his empire, and he mesmerizes and hypnotizes everybody who comes to him, and millions and millions and millions of more through the television, because there's a metaphysical science to the harnessing of the force, of the force, and the force has a light side and a dark side, right? Again, that's why we like to focus on these contemporary mythologies, because they exist for a reason. Right? They exist to show us and to make real for us the facts, right? The facts that otherwise we might not have access to. Eleftheria says, how do celibate Buddhists reach enlightenment if they cannot practice white Tantra? Is white Tantra really key? Yes, it is, because this is what most Buddhists don't tell you. The Dalai Lama has a sexual partner. And once Buddhist monks reach a certain level, they're introduced to the practice of white Tantra. And they are instructed to take a nun as a partner. But that level of knowledge is not discussed by Richard Gere and dime store Buddhists who are casual Buddhists. Buddhists absolutely know of white Tantra, and they absolutely know its necessity to reach the higher levels. But it's not openly discussed. It's not for public consumption. They uphold the traditions, the sacred tradition, that you do not discuss that openly in public. It's only for those who have demonstrated their worthiness to practice it. Benjamin says to Eleftheria, I have seen that documentary where men never seen a woman until their death. Pretty much similar. Don't know what you're referring to there, but certainly in Tibetan Buddhism, it's well known. White Tantra is a well-known practice. These are the, in terms of the mysteries, look, what originally used to happen in Lemurian times is a couple would get married, and after they got married, they would take a long trip, and they would go to the temple. And they would go to a temple where they would study, and they would learn the practice of white Tantra. And that is the tradition where we get the honeymoon from. The tradition that after a man and a woman marry, they go on a long journey together. And they go on a trip. And in contemporary tradition, that trip is to go and have lots of sex, right? Even in the contemporary tradition, after you get married, you can go away and you can have lots of sex. That's the right. That's how people understand it. That tradition comes from the fact that that's why couples were never supposed to have sex until they were married, because they wouldn't be instructed on the correct practice of sexual alchemy until they had taken their vows, until they had demonstrated their commitment to one another, to monogamy, to one another, and to their order, their tradition. And then once they demonstrated that commitment, they made that commitment, then they could go to the temple and be instructed on the further teachings, on the inner secrets. That's how serious it was. But that's where the honeymoon comes from. Benjamin says, you can see white Tantra imagery in some Buddhist temples, like in Angkor Wat. Yes, it's all actually very common. It's all over. And in Tibetan Buddhism, and in actually, clearly the eroticism and erotic sculpture and whatnot is even more prominent in Hinduism and Hindu temples, because of course the so-called the Kama Sutra and all that stuff comes down from that tradition. But many times, and many people, like, that's why they shake their heads, like historians and whatnot. They look at these temples and whatnot, and they're covered in erotic imagery, and they're trying to make sense of it, because they can't fathom what we just shared with you, that is a temple of Tantra, that is a temple of white Tantra, that is where couples would come after they were married to be instructed in white Tantra. It's right there, and it's in stone, right? That's what that temple is about. When we went to Tikal and we looked at the various temples, and then one building, we said, what's that building? And our guide said, oh, that was like a hotel. Oh, really? A hotel? So you have in Tikal, you have the Temple of the Sun, you have the Temple of the Moon, and then you have a hotel between them. Interesting. Wonder what that hotel was for. And you go in there, and immediately we went in there, and immediately we saw the cubicles, the places where the beds were, where the couples went, and we could just feel it. We just felt it. The energy was still there. It was still resonating in the living rock. Just imagine all of the energy, all of the sexual force which was being harnessed and being in that place. And it was profound. We just felt it, and we just, oh yeah, it's a hotel, okay. Because what else is the poor guide supposed to know, right? How else can he possibly interpret it?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, this, it is what it is, right? I mean, we all are where we are at, and that's all we can know is what we've been told, or whatever level where we are at. But this poor humanity is so removed. Is so removed from, we're really talking about the elite here on both ends of the spectrum, right? Because all of us at this end of the spectrum, and then we are, what, if we're 1/10 of 1%, right? We're lucky, in the same way that the elite are 1/10 of 1%. If maybe even, and then everyone in between is just in the dark. And that's the God honest truth, right? We have there's the Black Lodge, the Masters of the Black Lodge, and then there's the White Lodge, and those who are on the path of Gnosis, and everybody else in the middle are just varying degrees of completely asleep. And for them, they have their entertainments, they have their content, They have their idolatry, and they have their pornography, and they have their materialism, and they have their pleasure and their pain. That's what they have. That's all they know. That's all they will ever know. And it is what it is. It's always been this way. It just is what it is. So Roy says there is a game Tantra, and there is old and ancient symbols goddess. Roy, you're in the Philippines, right? No. But you're somewhere in the South Pacific. We can never remember where you are. It's Roy's somewhere in the South Pacific. He's either in Thailand or Bali or Philippines. Oh yes, so he is in the Philippines. Okay, so we got it right. We have a terrible memory sometimes for these things. So we know that there are some beautiful, beautiful Buddhist temples in that part of the world. That's part of the world that we've never been. I always wanted to go. But, anyone have anything to chime in? Because we've been talking too much. This is your live stream.
Yeah, I'm just listening basically.
But feel free to do to chime in or share your thoughts or.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we're getting on. We have about. Here's one of the things that we thought that we will have to call it around the 11 o'clock mark, because we're gonna have to go upstairs and celebrate with family and New Year's and so on.
Yeah.
And also we imagine others who are in our time zone will want to do the same thing. Will want to chime in and ring in the new year. So before then, one of the things that we wanted to ask is, do you like this format? Would you like us to do this more often, where you guys can have
I quite
this
enjoy it. I like it.
Yeah?
Yeah, I wouldn't be here otherwise.
Yeah?
I mean,
Yeah,
who
yeah.
would?
Yeah, I'm into it.
Kim, I think your microphone's muted. Oh no! Oh, sorry. You weren't in the stream. You got kicked out of the stream somehow. Okay, there you are.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Well, I love the format. I love it. I like it's very easy, and yeah, I'm enjoying this. Glad to be here. This is my first time.
It's a bit like a Zoom call, isn't it?
Yeah, but actually better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the first time that we've done this format.
Oh, okay.
Because normally it's just us talking about a topic, and everybody, if they want to participate, they can participate in the chat, and we do the same thing that we've been doing tonight, where we read people's chat comments. We try to read everybody's comments. Eleftheria says she likes the format as well.
Yeah.
If you like the format, what we might do is we might just do this on Mondays and Fridays, and then on Wednesday, if it's something that we feel like we want to have just the ability to present you guys with the information straight on, we'll do that. Or if you guys like this format, we'll just do it always like this.
Yeah, why not?
Looks
Why
good.
not?
But keep
right?
it on Facebook as well. But keep it on Facebook as well, because there are times when I'm in front of my laptop and other times when I'm roaming around. So Facebook's more convenient for that to listen.
Now it should also be on Facebook now.
It is.
It is. Right.
Yes.
Okay. Because I see people in the chat. Some people are on YouTube and some people are on Facebook.
Oh.
So
I came from Facebook.
okay. So people watching on Facebook and YouTube will be seeing everybody. So this is a service that we pay for called StreamYards that allows us to do this. You know what? Erwin says, great format. Happy New Year, everyone. Okay. You know what? If everybody seems to like the format, and look, someone just Roy just added himself to the stream. Look at that. Now we're 6.
Yeah.
So and then I could still actually,
Hello, everyone.
if I wanted to, I could still do a screenshot, and then everybody gets moved over to the side, but then I can still like share a screen, right?
Yeah.
So even if we're doing like presentations, I could still do like a PowerPoint or whatever, and show slides, and everybody's still here on the side, right?
Yeah.
So and then there's also this format where if someone has something, I don't know, more meaningful or more important or needs to spotlight, we can shift people around. So we have these options available to us. I personally am fairly happy with StreamYard as a service, and the ability to simultaneously go onto YouTube and Facebook. Someone suggested that we also start doing Twitch, so we might add a third stream, and we might have new people joining us from Twitch. But we'll see how that goes. This is all for new stuff for 2022. But if you guys like this format, then we can look to doing this in 2022 and making this the way Atlas Live looks and works going forward. And then we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Anyone have anything else they want to share or say or ask before we call it a night?
Happy New Year.
Happy
No,
New Year.
nothing here.
Yeah, happy New Year.
No.
Alice.
Poor Roy. Roy was on for a few seconds, but I think Roy struggles with a spotty internet connection. I think that's what he encountered
Yeah.
in his neck of the world. What time is it for you, Proteus?
3 o'clock, almost 3 p.m. in the afternoon.
Okay, all right. So it's 3 p.m. for Proteus. It's 3 a.m. for Azazel.
Yeah, no, it's actually 4:44 a.m.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
So it's basically
2:44.
morning.
Yeah. Okay, well, Benjamin Ochoa says Happy New Year. Benjamin Raphael says Happy New Year, everyone.
Yes, Happy New Year.
Happy
You
New
know,
Year.
it does. Benjamin says you're awesome, Azazel.
In what way? I don't know.
No, because you know what he's saying there is you're awesome for staying up all night just to be a part of this.
No worries.
I mean, it is a little bit. It is more than a bit humbling, we must say. And for all of you to spend your valuable time with us on New Year's Eve, it warms our heart to know that you're here, that you wanted to spend this time together, that we took advantage of this tool, this ability to say hello. Hello, Roy. Happy New Year. I think you can tell he's on a bit of a delay. There he is. He waved.
Happy New Year, everyone.
So
Yeah, my signal is not really good at the moment.
yeah, so it's this internet thing is a challenge for us, especially when we're trying to do a stream with from all around the world, and people at different speeds, whatever. It's going to be what it's going to be, but still. Benjamin says it's 7:44 in California. Alefteria wishes everyone a Happy New Year. No matter what happens, we are going to continue for all of you and for whoever else is going to be joining us in the new year. We're going to continue. I think we're going to try to continue with this new format, and we are going to focus again on being practical. Of course, there's lots of topics that we can cover. There's lots of different things that we can explore. There's lots of different things we can share. There are so many resources available online, especially at glorian.org. And with the books of Samael, if you want to know some of the more esoteric secrets and some of the things that then I encourage you to take advantage of those resources. We don't cover them because that's not our job. That's not why we're here. We cover some of them, and we share enough information that we think you need to know, but over and above that, there are other Gnostic instructors who are far more knowledgeable and experienced, and their job, their work is to share that information. And that's why they've dedicated their life to glorian.org, for example, and others who have dedicated their lives to teaching the works of Samael and proliferating the words and the works of Samael. We're here, as we've often said, to share with you the practical, where the rubber meets the road work that we can do here and now that will help awaken us and open the door to those higher realms. So if you want to get a sneak peek into what those higher realms are all about and all the other, like, that's all available to you. By all means, knock yourself out. But our focus is to help you get there. And to help you get there, again, to get you to the top of Everest, that's a noble thing to want to do. But first, we got to climb the local mountain that's in our own backyard before we go off to Tibet to climb Everest.
Yes, and don't bring any expectations because you will be disappointed for sure.
Exactly. And we have to be humble, right? And that's the other thing. The other thing that why we're here and why we're doing what we're doing the way we're doing it. Look, we're not walking on water. We're not healing any lepers. We're not raising the dead. We're here living possessed by the demon of fear and suffering the way all of you suffer, and gone through a life of suffering and darkness, of doubt, of all of it. Why? So that you can have someone who's just maybe a couple steps ahead of you, right? Just a couple steps ahead of you on the path, helping you get a little bit forward, get a little bit ahead. That's all. So that you're not. We're not here to be followed. We're not here to be, God knows, we're not here to be worshipped. We're not, none of that stuff.
No.
We're here to share with you, like we know what you're going through. Whatever it is that you're going through, listen, we know what it's like to be possessed by a demon and to overcome epilepsy and to overcome the seizures we know what it takes to be able to overcome these things. We talked about, the spinal column, and we're going to get that information to, we're going to have it go back. It's going to be here in the comments on YouTube. And And we're going to get that information about the energy chiropractor. And is it I think Genevieve asked? Anyway, it's somewhere in the comments. We're going to go back through the comments and find out who asked about that, and we're going to get that information to her. And how to overcome fear would be a good topic to discuss in the near future. We have discussed it in the past. We will discuss it again. There is a live stream here that we talked about it. And but we also, Genevieve, you may or may not know, or you should know, that hang on one second here. Yeah, okay. Genevieve, this article right here, okay, this is what we mentioned earlier, that we've written an 80,000 word article on the nature of fear. This is where you should begin. If you struggle with fear, this article is where you need to begin. There's the link. It's on our blog, Face Your Fears, Many Faces. We are an expert in fear. We are an expert, and fear is the great chameleon. Fear is the great con artist. Fear is one of the most difficult, and everyone who is on the path, certainly on the path of the Bodhisattva, on the direct path, one of their greatest adversaries is fear, because the direct path, the path of the Bodhisattva, is a path of psychological death. That is the path that we teach, the death of the ego. There is no way to truly work on that path, to work on the elimination and the death of the ego, psychological death, without suffering fear. Because fear is the only defense that the ego has against that path, the fear of death itself. And all egos fear to die. That's why fear is the great chameleon. All egos will work with the ego of fear. And that's why the COVIDiocy is a worldwide referendum on fear. Fear is the true pandemic.
Yeah.
Fear is the real pandemic. And that's why we came saddled with the demon of fear. That's why. Mugabo 22 says, no one man has all truths. We are forced to go back to our innermost. We are used to looking outside. Now we are forced to look inside. This is true. This is true. Always turn to your own innermost for the last word. Don't take our word as the last word. We're only here as a guide, right? As a springboard, as a guide to show you and point the way, and open the door to your own self, your higher self. But if you do project into the astral plane, if you do have a lucid dream, so-called, ask to see your divine mother. Ask to see your innermost being. See yourself as you truly are. If you have such experiences, and if you don't know how to have such experiences, if you've never had such an experience, we've had a live stream in the past talking about projecting into the astral plane, but there are resources available, again, online, how to do that. And there's, and they are, right? They're available to you. Nothing, for the time being, nothing is hidden. Nothing is held back from anyone. Master Samael made that possible. All the secret knowledge was made public. That was his ministry. That was his work. That was his gift to the world. And Glorian carries forth that mission, that work. and they do it in such a way that we can't. The best we could do would be to just sort of copy and paste what they've already done, or we're never going to be as knowledgeable esotericists as they are. All right, so there's no point in us trying, but our experience in battling a demon and overcoming that and walking the path of the Bodhisattva, saddled with such a burden, for the express purpose of helping everybody, whatever they're suffering from. That is where our strength lies, and the other aspects of the Atlas project that we are focusing on as an arc builder. So we can point the way to your own self, to your own innermost, and hopefully help you to achieve that and make that connection. And we can point you to the resources that we know are available and the other esoteric works. And plus, as many of you pointed out, and as we are very aware, we are here to unveil the esoteric truths of the living, breathing Word of God, which is all around us, and the modern mythologies that have been given to this humanity. Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Star Trek, The Matrix, Gladiator, Amadeus, the list goes on and on. The Lion King. We have developed, because we didn't always have, we always had the intuitive knowing. We could always feel divinely inspired film. We could, and music. We could always feel it in our heart. But we had to do the work to develop the eyes to see and the ears to hear to the level that we are at today, where we can unveil and unmask these esoteric truths, these underlying the meaning of these symbols and allegories, and demonstrate to all of you that even in the midst of the Kali Yuga, even in the midst of the suffering and degenerated humanity, even within the midst of the so-called garbage pop culture, God works with the clay that is on the wheel. The divine potter works with the clay that's on the wheel, and the divine potter within all of us will work with what he has to work with, which is us, the way we are. We are never forsaken, and nothing should be dismissed outright because it's a video game or because it's a multi-million-dollar blockbuster movie franchise. Nothing should be dismissed outright, because the Lord works in mysterious ways, and the living, breathing Word of God, we've experienced this, right? We've experienced being spoken to by God on an advertisement in a subway, where we looked up and exactly what we needed to hear in that exact moment was in the slogan of the advertisement.
Yeah.
For underarm deodorant. Who the hell could orchestrate that but our Divine Mother? This is something that, if we are aware of this and live our life this way, we can discover just how much the world is being orchestrated for our sake.
The oath of the abyss. In effect, seeing everything as a direct message to yourself. But there can be danger in that.
Okay, now there could be a danger in that, because you can go around misinterpreting everything
Yes.
and assuming that everything is a message. Not everything is a
Not
message,
everything is, no.
right? But if you are humble and you are calm and at peace and are aware, you just have one eye in and one eye out, right? Remembering your divine mother, remembering your innermost being,
Yeah.
prepared, ready to receive, not looking for. That doesn't mean that we go through life like a bloodhound or like a truffle pig looking for truffles. That's not what we're talking about here, right? It's very different, right? Because a bloodhound is going to find what's looking. A truffle pig is going to find truffles, right?
Yeah.
But we don't want to turn. We don't want to become pigs,
Mm.
right? We don't
That's
want to turn ourselves into that, right?
That's the
So-
nature of consciousness, isn't it? Like whatever we focus on expands, and so if we believe that everything is a message to us, that like, then our ego kind of takes hold of it. You know, like
Well,
I've had that kind of experience myself.
But you said the key word there is belief. If you believe everything is a message, then you're already lost,
Yes.
Mm.
Yes.
right? So that's why meditation is so important, because meditation is what brings us to that space. Meditation is what brings us to that point where we experience the expansion of allowing, the expansion of peace, the expansion of being, simply being,
Yeah.
not doing. And how many times have we typed this on Facebook? If you follow us on Facebook and listened and heard our comments, how many times have you heard us say the phrase, we are not meant to be human doings. We are meant to be human beings. And if your
Yes.
ego mind reacts to that and says, oh, well, that's fine for you to say, but I have so much to do. How am I supposed to get anything done? And the answer is so beautiful and simple and elegant. Be a human being done. That's the secret. Stop doing. Start allowing yourself to be done. And that process is what it means to be. Because when you be, that's when your being, your innermost being, can begin to work through you. So here's a mystery for you. I don't see the symbols, right? I don't hear the whispers. I don't know that message on that advertisement, what it really means. It is given unto me to know that. My attention was pointed there.
Yeah.
And when I saw it, I was told what it was I was reading. I didn't decide that was there for me, just as I didn't put it there for me. My divine mother put it there for me. And then my innermost pushed my attention to look at it. And then when I saw it, my innermost said, there, that. Pay attention to that. That's important. Listen to what that has to say to you. And then I read it, and sure enough, the connection was made, and right? But I didn't do any of that. I just allowed myself to be done. I was just being. And that's the beauty and the magic and the wonder of all of this. Is when you surrender to that process, when you surrender to being, guess what? You start being done, and your life starts being done. And you start recognizing your place in the scheme of things. And that's when the real magic starts to unfold. And now it's you become the hero in your own story. And you realize there's a divine author, there's a divine director, there's a divine cinematographer, and there's this whole narrative, this whole story, this heroic whatever. And I'm the character who has a role to play in all of that. But what is that role? That's one of the first things you learn as an actor, which is, again, why the path that we took. Because the path that we took as an actor was what Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage, and we are but poor players strutting and fretting, playing our parts on the stage. As an actor, you learn, and as an actor, the way we were taught acting, to work with energy, to work with Shakespeare, which is Sir Francis Bacon, which is Count Saint Germain. They're all the same. It's all one monad, just different names, different personas. And when you read Shakespeare, when you act Shakespeare, and you've trained the way we train with acting as a martial art, the energy is in the text, and you surrender to the text, and all of a sudden, the text animates you, and all of a sudden Shakespeare is doing you as an actor, and Macbeth just flows out of you, and the tragedy and the pain and the suffering and all the rest of it. It's just when you just allow it to flow through you, and then you comprehend the amphitheaters of Greece. You comprehend why the theater was such a sacred space, because it's true magic. You're not being possessed. It's not possession. It takes great effort to be. It takes effort to be.
Yeah, it's the same thing with music, really.
There you go. Okay, so you know what? We're not musical, right? So we can't share that experience, but we know that every musician playing Beethoven or playing Mozart feels this way.
Yeah.
I do
They
that
are
with
what they play,
dance, too.
basically. Or they become what they play.
All you have to do is watch Long Long play a piano concerto, and you can see his entire body becomes one with the music. He's a very theatrical pianist. Let's put it that way. But this would be my hope, my wish for all of you in the new year, is to seek, just seek being, to be. And when you have those little moments, we call them the breadcrumbs, yeah? The breadcrumbs, the manna from heaven. Those, every time you have a little serendipity in your life, you take advantage of that moment, and then recognize it as a breadcrumb that was put there by your divine mother, leading you through the dark wood into the light. And that's manna from heaven. And when we pray the Lord's Prayer, we say, "Give us this day our daily bread." That is your daily bread, that manna from heaven. Find one breadcrumb every day in your life, and consciously digest it as manna from heaven, as the host, right? The body of Christ. When you take it in consciously, that breadcrumb, that's your connection to Christ, the Christ consciousness, your divine mother orchestrating your life for you. That's God getting involved in your life to help you, guide you back to Him, your own innermost Christ. And so when you experience that every day of your life, it doesn't matter how insignificant a little serendipity it might be. A breadcrumb is still it might just be a breadcrumb, but if it's manna from heaven, it is the body of Christ. It was put there for you by your divine mother, and it's leading you on the path out of the dark wood and into the light. So it's not insignificant. So don't allow the serendipities to like pass you by and say, oh, well, it was nothing. Oh, it's just a coincidence, or it was just a this, or, oh, that cute. Oh, another serendipity. Oh, wow, I'm in synchronicity. Woo! No. Make it, remember
It's
your divine
impossible
mother.
to even joke about. I mean,
But we can share this because this was the process. This was the way that we that we followed that breadcrumb trail, and now look where it has led us. Right? We know it works. We know this will lead you to wherever it is that you need to be. Okay, Jennifer says, thank you for your work here. As a beginner, I feel lost and overwhelmed a lot. Your guidance is beyond helpful, bridging the gap of being in the dark to seeing a light and having direction. Again, that's why we're here. Okay, that's why we're here. Benjamin says, you mentioned about martial arts allowing your energy to flow freely, and it brings to mind the movie Matrix, where Neo was exhibiting his powers using martial arts. Yes, I mean, the thing about martial arts is you can't really do martial arts without being conscious in your body, and being present in your body, and being grounded and being centered, and then working with energy in your body. So it's that unifying, cohesive, conscious, because most of the time, let's be honest with ourselves. If we're watching TV, if we're on the computer, if we're in the car, if we're on the bus, most of the time we forget our body. Right? We forget that we're in our body. We don't pay attention to it. We don't pay attention to, we're slouching, we're like this, we're like that. We don't know where our left foot is. We don't know where our right foot is most of the time, right? We're asleep. It's very hard to do martial arts while you're sleeping, right? It's one of these, right? It's one of these things where it sharpens you up, and it also, it's work. It's just another level of esoteric practice. Now, is martial arts the answer to everything? No, but it's another tool, and it's important for us to do physical practices, energetic practices, physical practices, pranayama. All these things have their place in the toolkit. Roy says, I remembered the day when we in consciousness, yes, we practicing martial arts while it was raining. Yeah, okay, so there's a good example. And if you can practice martial arts outside, or any of these physical practices, meditation, pranayama, I mean, if you can do it outside in nature, even better, right? Even better. All right. Kim seems to have left us, and I think maybe we didn't have much of a chance to say goodbye, but hopefully she might still be around in the chat, or we're getting on to 11:15. So if it's all right with everyone, we'd like to say goodnight and thank you all for joining us tonight.
Yeah.
We're going to head upstairs and spend some time with family for New Year's.
All right. Good night.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Yeah,
Happy New Year.
Thank you all for coming out, and we'll see some of you perhaps on Monday.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Happy New Year. Okay.
Peace.
Yeah. Good night.
Okay, take care, everyone. And there's there it was. Kim said in the private chat, thanks everyone. Great chat and have a happy new year. Okay, so she got a chance to say goodnight. Okay, Roy, thanks. And thanks for joining us. And yeah, we know your internet is not the best, but I mean, we're always glad to have you. So thank you everyone again. Happy New Year and all the best to you and those you loved and those you love. In ventral peace. Good night.